Hey guys, what's up? It's Darkneck here and welcome back to another Babble for Azeroth video. So last week I finally got my ahead of the curve achievement for Pug Uldir raiding. So I've been running a pug once a week with the aim of getting my ahead of the curve achievement, and it finally happened last week. Finger guns. So what I like to do after I finish every raid after pugging my way through is do a bit of a Babble video, talking about the boss encounters, talking about the raid as a whole, what I thought about it, find out how you guys have been doing with it, whether you're progressing through normal, heroic, or mythic, and just kind of chat it out. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to go through the bosses, what I thought, I'm going to go over the raid as a whole, and then just have a bit of a bab at the end. So starting off with Telok. It was pretty much what I thought you would expect from a first boss entering a raid. On normal, very straightforward, very simple. On heroic, I liked the addition of the beams coming up from underneath the elevator. The increased damage on the cudgel pickup I thought was good. But overall, it was fairly simplistic. One thing I'll add with Telok is last week, in week 3 of the raid being out, I managed to pug this via trade chat on Mythic, which I don't think is generally a normal thing. So I would probably be saying Telok is one of the easier bosses that we have ever seen in a first tier release raid from a Mythic standpoint. I did think the fight was really good on Mythic again, with just the stack and spread mechanics thrown into the encounter. But again, relatively simple, but I still liked the uniqueness of the fight in regards to fighting on the elevator as going down, with the beams coming from underneath. I thought it was unique in that sense. I also liked the fact that there was pretty much a one tank fight with, you can have a DPS running into the ads in some cases, but otherwise just having the off tank run into the ad management. It was interesting. The second fight in there, Mother. Really cool fight, I thought. I liked this one. 3 chamber setup, had to have the groups going through the chambers at set times. The fire, the winds. The addition of the roof beams in heroic I thought was cool. Generally, swirly things on the ground in World of Warcraft are bad and something you want to avoid standing in, whereas in this heroic encounter or mythic encounter or whatever you're doing, it represents the safe zone to stand in. So I actually thought that was quite a cool addition to put into the encounter. It overly wasn't a highly complex fight. Again, majority of the time, a one tank fight on Mother, and then the other tank managing to go through first to help with ads or whatnot. So it was it was interesting in that setup to have 2 one tank fights essentially coming out of the gate on this raid, but it was cool. It was a unique fight. Fetid devourer, although not a lot happens on this, I thought it was really cool to have such an early gear check in the raid. From a tank perspective, when you're sitting in the bitch seat as off tank taking all the thrashes, it was fun at low item levels under gearing this, especially in heroic, to have to play really well to avoid ending up a pancake on the floor. I thought that was really good. I really enjoyed that. Zekvoz, again, I really enjoyed this fight. So on normal, majority of these bosses on normal, or we can nearly say all of them now, are fair pushovers, with the exception of Cahoon and people still having to do the job with orb carrying. Zekvoz, from a heroic perspective, although it's not overly amazingly hard or anything like that, is probably one of my favourite fights in here on heroic. I really like the amount of mechanics that got put into Zekvoz, having to deal with shadow donuts, the purple arrow eye beams, ad management from the smaller ads to the Void Weavers, the tank combo, the danger puddles, and the Guardians of Yogg-Saron you could spawn if people were stupid, the MC orb at the end. I thought it was a really interesting fight, and I enjoyed the amount of mechanics that they actually put into it. The encounter, I just think, was a really well-designed encounter. Victus, Omega Vector and Lingering Infection. I think it's safe to say that this caused a shit ton of confusion to the majority of the pug population that went through raiding. People seem to be getting the hang of it now, but oh my god, was it an enormous pain in the ass to try and explain to people to put 1 Omega Vector on each marker, and if you have low stacks to stand next to the person with Omega Vector, and if you have high stacks to fuck right off to Narnia. It was amazing. I think it's a really good fight though, in regards to we haven't seen anything like this for a long time. And not that we've actually probably ever seen something like Victus, I don't think. We had the plague that we had to manage on Hakar in Zolgrub back in vanilla days, but we haven't really seen anything like Omega Vector and Lingering Infection before, which I thought made this fight really cool. Moving to Zul, guys, I'm a bit disappointed in Zul, to be honest. When I started, I thought Zul was a really cool fight, and I was really worried about getting through it on Heroic to get my tank videos out because I thought it was going to be this huge pug wall. And don't get me wrong, in the first couple of weeks it certainly was. What I've found to be extremely interesting around Zul is how quickly it has become a Zergfest pushover. So we're in week 4 of the raid now, and I find it amazing how easily this fight is dealt with now. There's no more really CC, one Hexa, group the other one in, nuke it down, go break the other one, damage it before it gets an stun it before it gets an Ick out, take the Crusher in and out. Now we're at a gear level already in Heroic where we can just blow hero and just Zerg everything down on top of Zul, which makes for great fun and great pad. But I'm just interested to see this fight become this so quickly where all mechanics are just completely negated. Mythrax, I'll be honest, I didn't think this was a great second last boss to this raid. It's the boss of personal responsibility. It's not overly hard. The biggest issue I always found in pugs was the ad phase where people would go to pieces and get hit by the beam all the time. People taking the little green bubblegums that should have been saved for tanks in some cases. It's not, I just didn't think it was an overly hard encounter. And again, I am only talking from normal and heroic perspective here. I fully get it, probably a different kettle of fish on Mythic. But I don't think it was a great second boss. It certainly had unique elements to this encounter that I enjoyed, especially with the debuff and things like that. But I don't know if it felt like a second last boss. And that brings us to the last boss, Cahoon, which I think is a fantastic designed fight. I really do. I think Cahoon is very unique. I think it's a very well designed encounter. It certainly throws back because we're old gods and we're titans and things like that at the moment. It certainly gives me a same vibe from Cahoon and Yogg-Saron in regards to you always had to do pre-events to activate getting to the actual boss itself. With Cahoon, we had the tentacles that had to be tanked, we had to go into the stomach, we had to damage the stomach, weaken it, DPS through him, and then Cahoon would come out sort of thing. Yogg-Saron, we had the brain room. With this, we had the power matrix. And I think it was really good. I think an enormous amount of pressure and importance gets placed on having good orb runners, and in a lot of cases that makes people either step up or shy away. But mechanically, I think it was a really well-designed boss fight. I liked the difference in corruption from normal to heroic. With dealing with corruption, if you get hit by the orbs in heroic, it reapplies the debuff, and then you can continue spreading orbs through your raid and things like that. I like the Gaze of Cahoon mechanic. The pepperoni pizza, having to stand in the safe slices, the wave of corruption spread 5 yards, the blood feast, and putrid stacks. I think it was really good. I think they did a really good job, and I know that saying really good isn't a really great narration of an encounter and things like that, but it's just really solid. The biggest complaint, however, I have about Cahoon is his shitty loot table. So we've got AOTC now, and now we see no reason to go back and do it again. We got the fist weapon, I think, the first time we did it, and that was all someone really wanted. And now, because of that, and don't get me wrong, I'm only speaking primarily from a tank and DPS perspective. Nobody really wants to go back and do it again if it would be a white fest. A majority of people I've spoken to have sort of said that, Cahoon's loot table was very lackluster, whether they had to put better trinkets on there or a better weapon on there, some reason to continue going and getting through that outside of an achievement purpose. So that's pretty much it for my feels on the bosses, guys. Very interested to hear how you're finding them, what your favorite's been, what your least favorite has been, the differences you've found from heroic to mythic, perhaps in regards to what's changed from being a challenging boss to not being a challenging boss. What has had the most changes in it. Obviously, I don't get to see much of mythic, so I can't really comment on that. The encounter zone itself as well is something I just really want to quickly touch on, because I read on Reddit the other day, someone said that the Blizzard design team had been extremely lazy with Uldir and they really didn't enjoy it compared to other raids that we'd seen in the past. They also felt that it was, you know, you'd go in, you ran around the outside, you dropped into a chamber, and there really wasn't much in this. But I kind of disagree to some extent. Like, I think the aesthetics of Uldir have been fine. I think it's really suited what it is. I also think it goes along with that Titan Old God vibe, where it's always something we've worked around and then drop down into a middle kind of chamber for. Go back to Uldir. We went around in a circle after we kind of got in there, and then we dropped down into a chamber. Same with Encourage isn't really on the same level. But even Tuma Sargeras, you know, even going down into the Titan chamber, it was still kind of the same principle. So I think the design team around aesthetics for Uldir did a fine job, but keen to hear your thoughts on that anyway. So that is pretty much it, guys. Hopefully I haven't gone on for too long. As I said, I got through the raid, and then I always like to make a video where I just sit down and whatever comes out of my mouth comes out of my mouth about it. But yeah, interested to hear your thoughts as well, guys. Let me know if you're stuck anywhere, what bosses you've enjoyed the most, what bosses you've hated the most, anything you'd like. But thank you very much, as always, guys, for taking the time to check out the video. Like, comment, subscribe, come say hi on Discord, come find me on Twitch, and I'll see you all next time. See you, fam.
The shadows